Family life is busy. There's always a lengthy to-do list and a busy social calendar. For my kids, not so much for me. My kids' social life is way more exciting than mine. For that reason, it can be hard to keep a handle on our family finances. So in this video, I am sharing my favorite, easy, practical, frugal family tips that have saved us thousands. I've got over 30 tips for you. I've divided them up into categories. Let's kick it off with budgeting and spending. First of all, being frugal does not mean that you have to have a strict budget. Everyone's financial situation is different, and while budgeting down to the penny works really well for some people, for others it just doesn't. A budget can be too restrictive, especially for families who have frequent unexpected costs, such as sudden school trips, the sudden need to buy a costume for a particular event at the school, birthday parties that kids have been invited to, or new clothes that you have to buy because of a sudden growth spurt. Strict budgeting can be a little bit like crash dieting. If you splurge and suddenly it all goes to pot one month, you might feel so bad about it that negativity causes you to just quit altogether and stop trying. Instead, if you change your spending habits, that will save you money without you having to count every single penny. The best value can come from cutting your really big expenses such as housing, transportation and food. You could downsize your home, you could go from having 2 cars to just having 1. And then you can make smaller savings that add up over time by cutting out wasteful spending, being really clear about the difference between a want and a need. For example, you could set yourself a new rule that you're not going to spontaneously pick up things at the supermarket that are not on your list. Next, use a budgeting rule of thumb. You can use basic rules of thumb to help keep your spending under control. For example, a lot of people advocate the 50-30-20 budgeting system. So that's where 50% of your income goes on your needs, 30% goes on your wants, and 20% goes into savings. Now, as I just said, strict budgeting isn't for everyone, but what you could borrow from this rule is that every single month you put 20% of your income away into savings. You have that set up as a direct debit, and that's a non-negotiable payment to yourself that you always make. If you have irregular income or you come into an unexpected windfall, like some birthday money or a win on the premium bonds or a bonus from work, then have a rule such as the 50% rule. This is where you spend half for fun on whatever you want and you save the other half. Ditch chaos and organize your stuff. A disorganized home and life will inevitably lead you to spending more money. When you have systems in place so that you know where everything is, then you'll be less likely to buy unnecessary stuff that you don't need because you've already got similar things in, whether that be food, clothes or toys. Plus, you'll be less likely to make panicked last-minute decisions. For example, if your school is putting on a play or an event and you need a costume for your child, if you give yourself more time to get that costume sorted, you're less likely to overspend on something last minute, you've got a little bit more time to plan it, you'll find best value for money, or you could make a costume yourself. Why not challenge yourself to do your very own version of Sort Your Life Out? If you're not familiar with this show, it's one of those ones where the team gets all of the stuff from someone's house, lays it all out on the floor in a big warehouse, and then they have to go through it and get rid of the stuff that they don't really need. Now, I'm not suggesting that you hire a massive warehouse to do this, and it doesn't have to be done in just one weekend. If you don't have the time, then just set yourself the challenge to go one drawer at a time. Go one drawer, one box, one section of your wardrobe at a time, and slowly work around the house, getting rid of the stuff that you don't really need. Take care of your stuff. I have saved hundreds by passing on clothes and shoes from my eldest child down to my youngest child. And taking care of my own things means that I have got clothes that have lasted me for years and years. And if I decide I don't want to keep those clothes anymore, I've kept them in a nice condition so that they can be sold online. On that note, shop secondhand. Vinted is an absolute gold mine for secondhand clothes. And Facebook buy and sell groups are really great for all kinds of things: clothes, toys, furniture. And in some cases, people are giving things away for free because it might be a large item of furniture which they don't want to pay to take down to the tip. They can't fit it in their own car. So if you're able to go and pick that up, you can get things completely free of charge. You don't need all those skincare products. The beauty industry is so out of control that there's now like a new fashion for marketing skincare products to children that they don't actually need. Dermatologists are warning that not only do kids not really need these products, but also they can actually be really bad for their skin. As an adult, I just try to stick to the basics. I cleanse my face, I moisturize my face, and that's kind of it. That doesn't require like 50 different products in order to do that. Find products that work for you and stick with them, but don't overdo it on the volume of products that you have for your skincare regime. Do it yourself. There's a ton of household jobs that you can do yourself. And if you're not sure, there's normally a YouTube video or 1,000 to take you through step by step how you can actually do the repair or do the little household job that needs to get done. We've saved hundreds by doing this. I also do my own hair and do my nails myself at home. Get a pet that fits into your budget. Our kids have been absolutely desperate for a new cat ever since our last one sadly passed away a few years ago. So we are getting ready to introduce a new furry addition to the family, which is very exciting. We've been researching around what kind of cats to get, and we've decided we won't be getting an expensive breed from a private breeder. Those can cost as much as £1,000. Instead, we're going to go to a rescue centre and adopt a cat from there. Obviously, we've had to factor in what the monthly cost will be for food and vets, and it's all at a price point that we are comfortable with for our budget. And the kids have begged us for 2 cats, but we're sticking with just the one so that we're not doubling the cost of looking after them. Of course, pets are a luxury category in your budget, but frugal living isn't about going without the things that make you happy or bring you comfort. It's about prioritizing them, getting best value for money, and making room in your budget so that you can afford them. Get your kids involved. It is never too early to start teaching your kids about the principles of looking after money, budgeting, and being frugal. Make it fun for them by introducing a system for how you give them their pocket money. And if they grow up to be smart with their money, that ultimately benefits you because they are less likely to need a bailout from the bank of mum and dad. And encourage them to help you out by reminding them to turn off lights when they leave the room and to look after their stuff so that it lasts longer. My husband, who is a qualified independent financial advisor, actually wrote a book for our kids about money, introducing them to how to manage their pocket money, budgeting, everything they need to know about finances. It's actually available to buy on Amazon, so I'll put a link in the description below. Never free pour. With things like washing up liquid and laundry detergent, the temptation can be to just blindly pour in a really generous amount, and it was probably more than what you actually need. So try and be really clear and measure out exactly how much you need. In fact, try and use a little bit less so that it lasts longer. Cheap is expensive. The cheapest thing is not always the best. I tried to go down a brand with our washing up liquid and just got a generic supermarket owned one, and it was just terrible. It didn't really clean the dishes. I ended up having to use way more to make it even the slightest bit effective, and so we used it up much faster than I would have done the more expensive brand. Go for the item that will do what you need it to do for longer, and one that won't frustrate you so much that you'll end up just replacing it and spending more money anyway. Moving on now to food. Cook once, eat twice. Buy food in bulk and cook in bulk so that you can enjoy leftovers the next day or the day after. And on that note, I kind of feel like we need to stop calling it leftovers. I think there's kind of an attitude towards leftovers as if there is an option to not eat it and to just leave it and therefore waste it. So don't think of them as leftovers, think of it as food that you bought. Money in your fridge and in your cupboard that you need to not waste. I do this with things like lasagna, shepherd's pie, and roast dinners. Stop second helpings. When food is good, it's tempting to go back in for seconds. However, you are using up food that could be used for tomorrow's dinner. I used to cook a lasagna and we would have it all 4 of us, and then the next day there'd just about be enough left for 2 of us. So instead what I've started doing is to bulk out lasagna with things like a side salad, and it now means that 1 lasagna lasts all 4 of us for 2 days in a row. Have a leftovers shelf in your fridge. Having a specific space where your leftovers live rather than being shoved into the back of the fridge where you forget about them forever until they go gross and moldy is going to mean that you're more likely to use them up. There are huge savings to be made every month if you cut back on food waste. Statistics suggest that for the average UK household, they lose £1,000 a year because of food waste, and in the US it's close to $2,000. Be clear on what you won't skimp on. There are some foods that I'm happy to spend more on because I really love the flavour and just the quality of them. For example, eggs. I much prefer spending a little bit more and getting higher welfare eggs because I think they taste nicer. That means I prioritise on where I will save on other areas of our groceries and household items so that I can afford that slightly more expensive luxury bit of my grocery budget. Head to the world foods aisle. Coriander costs 28p per gram in the herbs and spices section of Tesco. However, if you head to the world food section where you can get a much larger bag, the cost of that is only 13p per gram. Now, obviously you have to have the space to store a much larger quantity, but that is working out way cheaper. You can also try visiting world food supermarkets. The prices for herbs, spices, and all sorts of other things tend to be much less at those. Cut up your own fruit and veg. Pre-cut watermelon wedges at Tesco are £3, whereas a whole melon is £2.20. Buy meat on sale and freeze it. There are often deals on larger packs of meat, or if you do a multi-buy, so just divide the meat up into portions, into freezer bags so that it's protected from freezer burn, and then pop them in your freezer and just get them out as and when you need them. Make your own version of your favorite takeaways. I got a pizza oven for my birthday a few years ago. In fact, I did a review of it. I will pop a link in the description below so that you can check that out. This means we have saved a fortune on pizza takeaways. We've also learned how to make our favorite Indian meal at home to save us money on getting Indian takeaways. Let's take a look at bills now. Don't ever accept renewal prices. Occasionally, your renewal price for your home or car insurance, for example, is a fair one, but in my experience, it's rarely the case. I saved £100 this year on my car insurance, and my husband saved roughly the same on our home insurance by switching to a different provider. It only takes minutes to go to a comparison website such as Compare the Market, take a little look at see if there's any better quotes, and then switch over to that and cancel your old one. Very, very rarely do you get rewarded for being an older customer. In fact, actually, you're just being penalized for being a long-term customer, because as time goes on, the cost just ramps up and up and up. So don't have customer loyalty, go ahead and switch, see if you can get a better deal. Find the cheapest, most efficient broadband deal. Similar with our home and car insurance, we can get stuck in a bit of a rut with our broadband provider. We can't be bothered to change, so we just stick with the one that we have. But actually, if you shop around, it's often the case that you can find a much better deal for just as good service. And even if you only manage to save £10 a month, that's still £10 towards your savings goals, making your life much easier in the longer run. Limit yourself to just 1 or 2 streaming subscription services. Because you can cancel most subscription services at short notice, we just cycle through them. So whenever a new TV show comes up on another subscription service that we quite like the look of, we cancel one of our other subscription services and take out that one, and then we will just switch between them as and when we see a show that we want to watch. You don't need to have every single one of these streaming services. You're not going to have time to watch all of the content on all of these streaming services all at once. Avoid upgrading to the latest smartphone on a regular basis. Some people upgrade their smartphone every single year when a brand new model comes out, and by doing this, they are losing hundreds of pounds a year. And the reality is that smartphones should certainly last you much longer than just a year or even 3 years. So try and make do with the smartphone that you have and stick to a cheaper contract. It's often the difference between spending £90 a month on your smartphone bill and just spending £20 a month. If your old phone is dead, then instead of switching to a brand new model, consider switching to one of the more recent models, but not the latest one, which is going to be hundreds more expensive than one that's a couple of years old. Here are a few quick fire ways to save money on your energy bills. Get rid of any drafts around the home that might be losing heat at windows and at doors and in your hallway, for example. Turn down the thermostat a degree or 2. And fun fact, it's not, generally speaking, cheaper to keep your heating on low all day rather than turning it on just when you need it. Now, I know this issue might spark a little bit of a debate, and some people insist that having their heating on much lower costs less because the heating isn't having to churn out loads of effort in order to heat up the house. However, if you are someone who only puts the heating on for a small window of time when you genuinely need it, you are probably going to spend less on your heating than someone who has it on constantly all day on low. We don't have our heating or hot water set to go on at specific times at all. We literally just do it on a when we need to use it basis, and I think this saves us money on our energy bills. And finishing with the fun stuff, family entertainment. Take advantage of free community events. Make sure you're signed up to local Facebook groups in your community to keep an eye out for when and where these things are happening. Use your local library. I say this a lot, but it is such a fantastic resource for keeping your kids busy. Ours is doing a summer reading challenge, which I'm going to sign the kids up to, because it will mean that we visit the library regularly throughout the school summer holidays. They'll get rewards and stickers for taking part, and it's great fun. And the library is also putting on specific events around the challenge that should be really great. Use a library app. Most libraries in the UK and in the US have apps which provide access to ebooks, audiobooks, magazines and newspapers completely free in your home. So if you struggle to reach a library for whatever reason, this is a really, really good alternative. You need library membership at your local library in order to use these apps. Once you've got that, that's pretty easy to get signed up to. You can then download one of these apps, connect via your membership and get access to thousands of free books. Kids art tutorials on YouTube. I'm not a crafty person at all, but thankfully there are tons of people on YouTube who are. Find some YouTube tutorials that are aimed roughly at your kid's age group. Get the stuff in so that your child can do the actual craft activity and then follow along with the YouTube video to recreate it. This is a great way of having some free fun at home. It means that you haven't had to pay for an expensive activity. For example, pottery painting at a pottery painting place is it is a fun activity, but wow, it is expensive to take 2 kids to go and do pottery painting for an afternoon, or any kind of entertainment activity for kids somewhere else. They'll normally charge, at least £5 to £10 per child. This way you just do it for free at home. If you get the supplies in, it's not gonna cost as much. Go for a picnic. My kids just love the simple act of going outside and going to the park with a picnic, laying out a blanket and having food there. There's something about it that just makes them really happy. It keeps them entertained for a good couple of hours. We have lifetime National Trust membership, which was gifted to us by our grandparents. So that means that we have access to loads of beautiful outdoor spaces to take the kids to. You don't necessarily need that kind of thing in order to access beautiful places. There are tons of free parks, beaches that you can go to with your kids to have a nice family picnic. And my final tip is to be content with what you have. Our society is constantly telling us that we need to spend in order to be happy. What you need to recognize is that companies profit from selling you the idea that your life will be better if you buy this one product or this one service. You can recognize that, then you can avoid falling into that trap. Be grateful for what you have and find joy in simple things like a walk with family or meeting up with friends. I am so glad that you stopped by to watch my frugal living tips for families. Please don't forget to hit subscribe for lots more money saving and money making tips from me.